Hi, everyone. I'm Christy, and this is Bonnie, and we are here for part two of our three-part series, Recognizing Defense Mode. So today, we wanted to talk about why it is important to know if you're in defense mode and give you some more ideas of how to recognize which nervous system state you're in. So first of all, why is it so important? The biggest thing is awareness of where you're at, particularly when you are in defense mode, is that it gives you choice. So the nervous system response happens automatically, but once you know that that's where you are, then you have an opportunity to take action if needed, or do self-care, or do something about that situation. And it also really helps us to have less judgment of ourselves because we can understand ourselves better. We can understand why we're feeling the way we are, why we're behaving the way we are, reacting to situations and people the way we are. And it also really helps you to understand other people better, the people in your life. And in a relationship, when you can make these things explicit, where you are when you're feeling in defense mode in some way, and you can talk about it, it can really help a relationship because then you're really taking ownership of where you are and how you're feeling. And it makes it more possible that the other person won't get into defense mode themselves in response to that. And it can really bring you closer together, honestly. And it helps you to be able to support other people that when they are in defense mode, if you understand what these states look like, and that a lot of times it really isn't personal. That's so hard in the moment, but it's often
Right.
true.
Right. Yeah, we do tend to take it personally, and oftentimes it's not about us. It's something going on with them.
Yep.
So yeah, yeah. I'm gonna pull up quick our nervous system map that you received earlier, and there we go.
This was in part one.
Right. So we're just going to do a quick review of the three main nervous system states. And and then we're going to talk more about how to identify, how to figure out where you are on this little roadmap. So there's safe and social. That is that connected. I feel safe. I can relax. I feel connected to myself and others. And that term connected is very good as a descriptor for that state. But when we go into defense mode, well, our first stop would be fight flight, and that is a very mobilized, high energy state. So we're bringing up all this energy so we can fight or we can flee, we can get out of there. And so that tends to feel like anxiety or anger, that type of thing. And then if things are overwhelming, we move down to that shutdown freeze response. And that is characterized by more of a sense of immobilization and low energy, where it's hard to move, it's hard to think, it's hard to get things done. So those are the three primary states. And those words that we use here, connected, mobilized, and immobilized, are your best clue when you're trying to identify states. Sometimes if you're not sure one or the other, if you can think in terms of mobilized versus immobilized, that can be one of the best things to help you figure that out. So examples of what that might feel like. So Christy and I often have had clients who have trouble sleeping, and often will describe that as they lay down, they can't get to sleep because their thoughts are spinning over and over going, and they can't stop that. And that is an example of your thinking is kind of mobilized, right? And so that is usually, they're usually in some state of fight or flight. Their energy is up, which makes it really difficult to fall asleep. And so understanding that, knowing that that's what's going on there, gives us some options. Now that we know that, what we want to do is help them find ways to shift out of that mode a little bit so that their body can get to sleep. So another example is another thing we see often is people with low energy. And another example with that is procrastination. So it's hard to get things done. It's hard to get moving. And again, it's that immobilization. Those are examples of people who are experiencing in some way more of that shutdown freeze state. So, and wanting to retreat, there's another one, wanting to pull in word, to be invisible is the term that we use there. So those are examples of, symptoms or things that are going on that you can use to kind of place yourself on the map. Another one that can be really helpful is posture, and muscle tone. So someone who might be very rigid in their posture, that may be an example of where they're in more of a fight-flight mode. There's some anxious, tight, tense energy to that. And someone who's more in a collapsed state, I think of one client in particular, it was very clear when she was in shutdown. She come sit down in my office, and it was like that collapsed posture was very prominent with her. So, and then the muscle tone. Christy has a background in massage, and so she has seen very clearly some people who are very tense and tight, and then other people whose muscles are very flaccid and soft. So those are other things that indicate which kind of defense mode someone might be in. So I'm gonna stop that and turn it back over to you, Christy.
So sometimes some of the characteristics of these different states can seem very similar. Again, I think those words, connection, mobilization, and immobilization, are probably the best indicators of which state there is. But some examples of things that look similar is like not thinking clearly. So that's true in both the fight, flight, and the shutdown, but they have different qualities. So in fight, flight, it's more of a scattered, mind racing, and it's like a jumble of thoughts that you can't think clearly because of that. And then in shutdown, it feels more vague and foggy, like you're trying to see through a fog and you can't get the thoughts together. Another thing that can be similar is being immobilized. You can be immobilized in safe and social. You're not even in a defense mode, and you're relaxed and you're sitting there meditating. Or you can feel immobilized and shut down. And the difference again is kind of an internal quality to that. Is that something that you are retreating from connection and from doing things in life? Are you feeling like you can't do the things that you want to do? That's more of a shutdown quality, is that kind of immobilization. So another one is anxiety. That's common in fight flight, but you can also feel that in shutdown as well. And again, it's how is that being expressed? In fight flight, it's more of an active, you're physically active, you're mentally active. And in shutdown, it's all kind of squished down. So I'm kind of talking about your internal experience here to help you differentiate. And, Bonnie kind of alluded to this with the posture and muscle tone. Those really speak to default state. We call that default, because all of us kind of tend towards one or the other of the defense modes more of the time. We can go into either one when we're feeling threatened or stressed, but we tend to go to one or the other. And that's an important thing to recognize for yourself as well. Which one do you tend to go to most often? And I just want to be clear that none of these states are inherently good or bad. They are all necessary. They all work to keep us alive, ultimately, right?
And
So,
functioning and
yeah,
functioning.
and functioning.
We need some energy from fight flight to just move, to do the things we have to do. It's a smaller amount than when we're in that kind of defense mode, but we
Right.
use that energy just to function.
Exactly. The issue is when it's happening and it's not matching the situation, right? So you're in anxiety when you're trying to go to sleep and your thoughts are racing. Okay, nothing's happening actually, right? So that's not useful to you. And so that's when we want to take steps to bring ourselves out of that activation and back into that safe, social, connected place. And the other thing that happens for people is they get stuck. So we're stuck in our default state and we're there most of the time. And, if you or anybody ever says they just feel like they can't relax, that's why, because they're stuck in their default defense mode. So that's another reason when we can recognize that and then take the steps to bring ourselves back to the safe and social connected state. And that's equally important to recognize when you're in that nervous system state, because then you can kind of anchor yourself there and say, okay, yeah, right now I'm feeling at peace. I'm feeling connected. I'm feeling safe, a felt sense of safety in my body. And then we can more easily come back to that because it becomes more familiar.
Right.
And we can recognize the circumstances, internal and external, that are bringing us to that state to help us in the future.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that's a lot in a very short amount of time.
Right. It is. Yep. But
Yeah.
hopefully that gets you all started, and kind of gives you an idea of what we're working with here. And you probably recognize yourself in some of this, and hopefully that's helpful to you. So in the next video, we're going to be talking about strategies for attending to your needs when you find yourself inappropriately in there, or you find yourself stuck in a place, and can't find your way back to safe and social. So we'll be talking about ways to work with that and to support yourself through that, and understanding what the defense mode is telling you. So again, when you recognize that you're there, that is really helpful information, and you want to work with what your body's doing for you. And that's why it's showing up, is to help you. So
Something needs
you rest.
attention, right?
Right. And giving it attention is going to help you move through that.
Mhm.
So we'll talk about that more. And in the meantime, we invite you to practice observing yourself and observing when you're in defense mode, without judgment,
Mhm.
and also observing other people. It's really fun, actually, to watch other people and say, oh, I think that person is in fight flight. So play with that a little bit, and just pay attention, see how that goes, and we'll see you in the next video.